kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Picking Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by my amigo Tom. Tom, how are you today?
It's a beautiful Sunday. We're out here in Myrtle Beach. I'm not complaining. How are you, Keith?
Well, I'm not in Myrtle Beach, so I'm complaining. But happy Father's Day to all the
Father's Day
out there. Great day for you. Celebrate you. Congratulations. Keep being a great dad. And if you're a shitty dad, do better, I guess. All right, we got UFC on ABC 5. Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. Pretty good card. Another ABC card. I think we already had one this year. They're starting to do more of these daytime cards, right? This is another, it's an afternoon card. It's fun because there's not really many other Saturday sports on right now. So a nice afternoon card that you can get together with the boys and throw on cable TV for free, have a couple of brews and pregame your night out. That's what I like about these cards. I went out last night as well, so I'm pretty hungover at the moment, but gonna power through and get a quick episode for you guys. So why don't we kick it off as we always do, Mr. Tom? We'll start with our prelim locks.
Prelim locks coming right up. Prelim notables.
Yeah.
First one's first. I'm going with Zaglas Zumagulov. We talked about him last week. Seems like we talk about Zaglas Zumagulov almost every week because everyone he's trying to fight eventually pulls out. Now, this isn't the hairstyle that we've seen from Zaglas as of late. He's going with the Patty Pimlet kind of like half watermelon kind of, bowl cut thing. And that's been scaring off the opponents. Now, I know Zaglas Zumagulov. This may sound like a broken record. Like I said, we've talked about him for multiple weeks in a row here. He's coming off of 3 losses. Manel Cape, Jeff Molina, Charles Johnson, all split decisions. He was really close in the Jeff Molina and the Charles Johnson fight. The Manel Cape, he was knocked out, but that was a year and a half ago. He's totally changed his training regimen, and he's going to come back as a better version of himself. He's had a lot of issues with getting opponents to actually just make it to the fight. He's been cutting weight, and all that suffice to say, I think the guy in Joshua Van that they're putting up against with this time is a guy who's going to want his UFC shot. He's not going to pull out for any reason, but I just don't think he's going to be of UFC caliber. He's 21 years old, so he's very new. He hasn't been on the UFC stage before, so this is definitely going to be some bright lights and a step up for him. Taking it on short notice, I think it's only about a week. I have to say everything leaves in the corner of Zaglas Zumagulov here between the hairstyle, the amount that he's been training, the UFC preparedness and readiness. In terms of actual frame, they're going to be both very similar in that regard. And Joshua Van, like I said, the level of competition is just not there. You look 2 fights ago, he beat someone who's 2-1 with a calf slicer. You're not going to get that on Zaglas Zumagulov. So my lock, my prelim notable is going to go with Zaglas Zumagulov to get the win to open up UFC on ABC 5. What's your thoughts on that one and the next one, Keith?
Love it. Absolutely love it. I like to say his name like Douglas with a Z, so I think Zuglas is going to get the win this week. I got one I want to talk about real quick. Mr. Jack Jenkins against Jamal Emmers. Jamal Emmers definitely a step up from Jack Jenkins' last fight against Don Shanis, the guy with the butterfly elbow tattoo, if you remember that, Shameless Shanis. And that was just a great fight for Jack Jenkins. That was in Australia, UFC debut. He is an Aussie. So, just a great way to kick off a UFC career for Jack Jenkins, throwing wild combos, harsh leg kicks, step up in competition in Jamal Emmers. He's got a little bit more of a UFC experience than Don Shanis, but I like Jack Jenkins to get it done this week. I think his stock is very high. I've seen some of those like investing apps where you could throw a couple bucks on an athlete and their stock rises. I don't know how legitimate those are, but if you have one that you like, let us know so that I can start throwing money on Jack Jenkins because the ceiling is very high for this guy. Just slick combinations. Like I'm talking jab to the body, leg kick, and then a right hook. It's just wild shit. Like Alexander Volkanovski level combinations, just, throwing power, very creative. So I like Jack Jenkins quite a bit. What do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. You have a guy in Jamal Emmers who's going to stand and trade with him. He's a guy who, went to a split decision with Giga Chikadze 3 years ago. So, being 33 and on the other side maybe of his prime, it's hard to say what we're going to get from Jamal Emmers at this point, but I'm right there with you. I think Jack Jenkins from his first time out, it was a really interesting fight. He showed a lot of really good things, especially on the feet, a lot of really good combinations and using the legs and just really mixing it up between body, head, leg kicks. Really interesting what Jack Jenkins does here, and especially he's going to get a willing participant and partner in Jamal Emmers to stand there and trade. So really interested to see what comes out of this fight. I think it's surely going to be one to watch, and it's early on the card. We're starting, of the first 3 fights, 2 of them are Prelim Notables, prelim locks. So I think UFC on ABC is shaping up to be really good. And, we went 2 for 3, might as well go 3 for 4. We might even go 4 for 5. Randy Brown taking on Wellington Turman, the 4th fight on UFC on ABC 5. That was a lot of times to say on and a lot of numbers. Thanks if you bear with me. Randy Brown is one of the tallest, rangiest, lankiest guys in the division. And I really like Randy Brown, how he almost has like a praying mantis style where his hands are in front like this. And because he's so long, he just kind of pops it out, pops out the jab, pops out the right hand, and he's able to find guys. He's got really good combinations. He's coming off of his most recent fight just over 3 months ago. It was a loss by submission to Jack Della Maddalena. Anytime you go up against Jack Della Maddalena, I'm almost going to forgive any losses, especially at this level. And when he turns around and he's going to fight somebody like Wellington Turman, nicknamed the Prodigy, maybe out of irony, because Wellington Turman has not done that well to date inside the UFC. Only 26 years old. He's 6 foot tall, 72-inch reach, in which in every statistical category, Randy Brown's going to be a little bit better on. He's not going to have as beefy, as strong of a frame because he is a little bit taller and he is more lanky, but I like his speed. I like his precision. I like his technique to get it done over Wellington Turman, who is a guy who, in his last 2 wins over 5, he's got a split decision win over Sam Alvey, who's no longer in the UFC, and Mir Shirkinov. He got a submission where Misha Shirkinov is missing like 3/4 of his right arm, and I think also no longer in the UFC. So, he doesn't have a win over his last 5 of anyone in the UFC. Wellington Turman's not a guy who's very high fight IQ. His most recent loss is to Andre Petroski, and he went to decision, which actually wasn't that bad of a showing by him. Actually fighting to decision against Petroski at this point is actually viewed positively compared to the rest of Wellington Turman's career, or at least how it's gone as of late. So for all of those reasons, I think Randy Brown's going to have the advantage on the feet. I think Randy Brown also has pretty good takedown defense, so I don't think Turman's going to be able to get it to the ground, nor am I sure he's going to have success if it does get there. So for all of those reasons, I'm thinking Randy Brown is a lock to take this one. And just to look at the people on Tapology, what do you know? They agree with me. Shocker.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I like it. I like it a lot. I got one for us. I like Neil Magny over Philip Rowe. Neil Magny, he's one of the 2 Neils in this welterweight division. You got Jeff Neal and you got Neil Magny. And the 2 of these guys are somewhat gatekeepers, right? Like they're used as a big test for a lot of their opponents. Especially Jeff Neal. He's going up against Ian Gary in a little bit. But this fight against Philip Rowe should be a fun fight. Neil Magny is just actually, they're very similar in size. Neil Magny is typically the longer, lankier guy, pops out his jab really well. Just, he's really got good use of his limbs overall. That was a funny way to say that. But, kicks, punches, just everything fires for Neil Magny. Everything works really well. He's really good up against the cage. I like him to get it done against Philip Rowe this week. I just think he's a little bit a step above Philip Rowe. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I agree with you. For 2 guys that have a similar style, similar build, I think it's going to come down to skill and experience. When we look at who Philip Rowe has fought, you got Nico Price, and he's got the win over Nico Price. For Nico, he's notable, but he's not a top-level talent. Guys like Jason Witt or Ryan Kosuke, these aren't necessarily wins that are going to compare or even quantify to the level of guys that Neil Magny has been in the cage with. He's only 3 years older, but he's got a wealth of UFC experience. Wins over Jeff Neal, tight fights with Max Griffin, Shavkat Rachmanov. He's been there. I know he got taken down fairly easy and manhandled, but again, it's just the guys and the level of competition that he's sharing the octagon with. Wins over Daniel Rodriguez by Darce. He's got a lot of different ways he can get it done. And I don't think Philip Rowe is going to present enough of a skill discrepancy in any particular area to really find a ton of success against Neil Magny. It's going to be a good fight, though. Fusion XL, they've been doing very well lately down in Florida. So, if Phil Rowe finds a way to get it done here, that's another tip to the another feather in the cap of Fusion XL down there in Florida. So there's a lot of guys they've been doing well from there. I have another prelim lock. This card is actually pretty loaded now that we look at it. Justin Tafa's on the card, taking on Austin Lane. Austin Lane is a guy that we saw make his UFC debut on the Contender Series. He got a win over a guy named Richard Jacoby, 6-0-1 via ground and pound. That was 8 months ago. Prior to that, he's a guy who's coming from Fury. And with Fury, we've noticed that you can have, a big discrepancy in terms of the level and the caliber of opponent that you're getting. He won versus Eric Lunsford, who's a 6-3 via leg injury. That was a year ago. And you just see the level of competition, just, 5-9, 5-3, 8-3, and a lesser division, a lesser promotion is not going to be able to give me a ton of confidence at 35 years old that you're going to come in here making your essential UFC debut against a guy like Justin Tafa, who is not the most technical, but definitely can take a shot and absolutely can give a shot. Both of these guys are stand-up strikers, and I just don't know if I trust Austin Lane in his UFC debut against a guy like Justin Tafa, who's 29 years old, who's improving, who can take a shot. Now, there's going to be a big discrepancy, 6'6", 80-inch reach, 6 foot, 74-inch reach. So giving up 6 inches is Justin Tafa, but in the heavyweight division, 6 foot tall is not that big of a fighter. So I think Justin Tafa is going to be used to that. He's going to go in there. He's going to be able to absorb some punches if Austin Lane's going to throw him back at him. But I think Tafa's going to be the guy landing the more devastating blows. And that's backed up by the fact that, he's been in there with some guys now. You don't want him to lose to Carlos Felipe. You don't like the loss to Jared Vandera. But the Henry Hudsucker, also not a great win. Also not a great win by Parker Porter. Am I reevaluating my thought here? No, I'm not. Justin Tafa, even though he's got 2 losses to people that we don't love in the UFC, and he's got wins over people that we also don't love in the UFC, I just think that having that level of UFC competition, looking at some of the shoddiness of Austin Lane's competition, and Austin Lane getting here at 240, he's also a bigger guy. You can look at his physique here. Not saying that he's on any exogenous hormones or anything like that, but typically when you see a guy who is fighting people who are not that great, he's got a loss to Greg Hardy, which doesn't say a lot for the Contender Series, and his ability to throw technical, intelligent shots and be able to come back from them. So if you get knocked out by Greg Hardy, that gives me all the confidence in the world to pick Justin Tafa to win over you, and that's really where it's gonna fall for me. I'm picking Justin Tafa because Austin Lane lost to Greg Hardy.
Yeah, that's solid. It wasn't 2018. You never know how much Austin Lane may have improved since then. Hard to judge the quality of opponents coming out of.
And his age is going down, whereas Justin Tafa's getting his age is going down. No one's age goes down. I'm an idiot. He's getting older. He's 34, 35, 36. He's getting later in his career. You expect to see far fewer improvements than, the guy like Justin Tafa, who's 27, 28, 29 and moving on.
Yeah, good point. I do think the fat Samoans in the UFC are kind of trending down at the moment, but we'll see what happens this week. I got one more I want to talk about, and that's Tabitha Ricci versus Jillian Robertson, Baby Shark. I'm conflicted about who wins this fight, but I actually do think it'll end in submission. I think that's a very solid bet for this one to end in submission. And if I had to lean one way, I actually kind of am leaning towards Jillian Robertson. Her stand-up is getting a little bit better. It's not as good as Baby Shark, but I think the second that this fight hits the ground, it's Jillian Robertson's fight. Tabitha Ricci does have great jiu-jitsu, but Jillian Robertson is one of the best women in the world when it comes to jiu-jitsu. At least that's what they say. So I'm gonna go with Jillian Robertson here to get the win. Both of these women, their stock is climbing very fast, and just shooting up the division, especially Baby Shark. Jillian Robertson's kind of been around a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Jillian Robertson, but it's a tough one. But I do think this fight's going to end by submission. So if you have the option to make that bet for a fight to end by submission, that's what I would take. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think this is actually going to be a really interesting fight, and there's going to be a lot of people who are tuning into this fight more than any other women's fight. And I think that usually just boils down to the fact that both of these women are fairly attractive. Jillian Robertson is coming off of, I believe, a Joe Rogan Experience episode, so that's always going to, add a little bit of pop to the ratings when that fighter fights again, especially a female fighter. Both at very similar points in their career, kind of on the upswing. Jillian Robertson, she's coming off of The 2 wins, Pierre Robinson by armbar, like you said, Maria Agapova submission, Veer naked choke. I think both of these fighters are adept on the ground, which can go one of 2 ways. Usually, we may see both of those fighters do stand-up fighter, have a stand-up fight, have a stand-up fight and strike, because they know each other's adeptus on the ground. They also may decide to challenge each other and go to their strong suit, and we may see a grappling match for 15 minutes. So really hard to predict which way it goes. I heard you say that you're thinking it's going to end in submission. I would think that these 2 fighters and their skill sets maybe cancel it out, and I would lean a little bit more towards decision. That's probably not going to give you that much that great of a bet. But regardless, I'm nervous about this one. I don't know how it's going to go, because you have 2 women who are at very similar points in their careers, very similar strong suits, very similar fighters overall. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. Jillian Robertson, 5'5" versus Tabitha Ritchie, 5'1". Ritchie's going to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more compact. She carries a good amount of that weight in her tuchus, as some people would say. So we'll see what happens with this fight.
Wait, you said Tabitha Ritchie does?
Yeah, she carries a lot of weight in her tuchus.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like your Yiddish.
My Yiddish.
Yeah, that's it for me for prelim locks or prelim notables. You got any more?
The last one I have, and this is a very extensive prelim notable, we're basically going through the entire card here. Tatsuro Taira, I'm going to go with him to get this one done too. He's just shown that he's a very good fighter, even at 23 years old. He's 13-0. He's got some good levels of competition coming out of Japan. Carlos Candelario, his first UFC fight, fought to a decision and looked good there. He got a submission against CJ Vergara, and Jesus Aguilar, another submission. So Taira's only been improving as we've seen him. Clayton Rodriguez is a guy who lost to CJ Vergara via split decision, and that was a back and forth fight. It was a very tight fight, and just the level of competition. Also coming off of Jungle Fight, and if you're fighting a guy who's 4-3 off Jungle Fight, and even 5-0 on Jungle Fight, and you get those as wins, it's not a promotion that is having the best amount, is known for having the best fighters in there. So some question marks when it comes to Clayton Rodriguez. Less question marks for Tatsuro Taira. I actually don't feel like Clayton Rodriguez is that big of a step up in competition for him, and I think definitely has some weaknesses that Taira could take advantage of. And again, Taira is a guy who at 23 years old, 13-0, and had some finishes inside the UFC already. I think that they're really going to want to raise this guy's stock. And going up against Clayton Rodriguez, the guy who's fighting out of Team Nogueira, I just expect Taira to be able to go out there and get it done, even though Clayton Rodriguez is Brazilian.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. I like Tatsuro Taira, and Jungle Fight is always a little bit sus as a promotion to me. There's some weird guys that come out of there, so I like the pick quite a bit. You ready to move on to the main card here?
Let's go on up to the main card. We got Cody Brundage. Oh wait, hold on. Main card pick. All right. With that being said, we got Cody Brundage's. Am I having a stroke? We have Cody Brundage taking on Sedriques Dumas. What do you think about this one, Keith?
Well, first of all, thank you, Thomas Manzanero. Love the early picks. Respect the grind. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you watching. I like Cody Brundage in this matchup. I like the experience of Cody Brundage. He's developing a really good resume right now in the UFC. Really good all-around fighter. He's coming off of 2 losses in a row. But I just think he's just so much more complete than Dumas. Dumas, coming off of a loss against Josh Fremd in his UFC debut. Josh Fremd is good competition, but just when it comes to MMA math, I think Josh Fremd does a lot of the same things right that Cody Brundage does. I'm gonna go with Cody Brundage here. I don't think Dumas is up to the challenge at the moment. What do you think, Tom?
Is it Dumas? My dad always had a joke for people who have the last name that's spelled Dumas, that, he's like, oh, hi, Mr. Dumbass. And apparently at the end, it was like an interview. And Mr. Dumbass, I could do this. Mr. Dumbass, I could do that. And at the end, it's Dumas is how the guy pronounces it.
Yeah.
Apparently. So, I'm sure he doesn't pronounce his name Dumbass, although, it could phonetically be like that. He's the Reaper, 6'2", 79-inch reach. So 7-inch reach advantage coming into this fight. This is his UFC. It is not his UFC debut. He fought Josh Freb, that's right, and he lost via submission. Via guillotine choke just 3 months ago. So, we've seen a lot of people win on the Contender Series, losing their first fight, and then come back and get a win in that second or third fight, depending on how you count it. But for Sedriques Dumas, looking back, he's got a win in his last 5 over a guy was making his MMA or his MMA, not his debut, but his penultimate, I guess, would be maybe the right way to call it. I think Cody Brundage is a guy who has got strong grappling. He doesn't have that strong of striking, and he's coming off of 2 losses to Mikhail Olajaychuk and Rodolfo Vieira that actually don't age that badly, especially when you consider that Rodolfo Vieira is a guy who's known as the black belt killer, or the black belt hunter, the jiu-jitsu guy, Rodolfo Vieira, another Fusion XL guy. Cody Brundage getting tapped out by him, I don't think discredits his ability to fight on the ground, especially against somebody who, like Sedriques Dumas, is not somebody who's that strong on the ground. He is a striker. He likes to stand and bang with you. He's got quick kicks. But Cody Brundage, I think, is going to be able to avoid those, be able to take it to the ground and show off his ground game and get the win there against Sedriques Dumas in what is his second UFC fight. And, we'll see what happens with Sedriques Dumas if he's ultimately gets a third fight and, maybe he gets a striker this time. He gets to battle his way back.
Yeah, I'm definitely rolling Brundage. All right, next up, we got David Onama versus Gabriel Santos. And the people at Tapology are really on Santos this week. But I actually like David Onama quite a bit. He's taken a long time off since, it felt like a lot longer. Maybe, but, it's been 9 months since that fight with Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr has been very active since that.
Very active.
But David Onama definitely had a couple of issues in that one. Primarily his gas tank. So you'd have to think these past 9 months he's been training, trying to just boost that cardio quite a bit and figure out how to not blow his load in the first 2 minutes of a fight. He did have a great first 2 minutes, and it looked like he was going to have Nate Landwehr out of there. But Nate Landwehr absolutely has that dog in him every time he steps into the octagon. It's exciting. He's thrilling. He's got a sick chin, so he outlasted him. And I think that's one of those fights that if you had to show people, hey, there's really good guys outside of the really known names in the UFC. Two guys that aren't as well known to casuals are definitely David Onama and Nate Landwehr. That's a fight that I show a lot of my friends that aren't as deep into the sport. But I think David Onama, he's probably been working the past couple of months, just trying to boost up that cardio. And then you have Gabriel Santos. He's had one fight in the UFC. It was a loss to Lerone Murphy, split decision. I think David Onama, if he puts it together with his cardio, I'd really like to imagine that he did these past 9 months. I mean, that's long enough to produce a baby. So it's definitely long enough to get your cardio for a 15-minute fight. Then he's a serious threat. He's got solid power. He's got a long reach, 74 inches. He's the taller man here. A little bit older, but it's the power, and if he can bring it up with the cardio, which I'd like to imagine he did, then it's David Onama's fight. And I think he can get it done early or intelligently and make it a 15-minute fight. So I'm going David Onama. Controversial pick. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, this one's a tough one because both of them have the ability to finish a fight, Gabriel Santos has won decisions in the past, whereas David Onama seems to lose decisions. And I don't know if that's necessarily a gas tank thing or as much as it's a stamina management thing. And I know that may be splitting hairs, but ultimately for David Onama, that fight with Nate Landwehr was back and forth, and both of them were just swinging for the fences. Anybody would be gassed out by the third round of that fight. And that was more or less showing off the heart of David Onama to continue to keep battling and keep fighting when he was winning positions, losing positions, dirt tired, taking a beating, giving a beating. It really showed the dog that was in David Onama. And we haven't seen as much of that from Gabriel Santos, but that could also be because he keeps himself a little bit more defensive, and he saves himself from getting into those firefights, and he does have a little bit better that stamina management. So like you said, Keith, it's really going to boil down to what David Onama has done over the last 9 months to be able to keep that stamina throughout the fight. I think technically and with that dog and with that mentality, things that you can't necessarily go out and find, I think he does have the advantage. But is he going to be able to put that on display against Gabriel Santos here so that he can keep his wits about him, keep fighting his fight, and then not get suckered into something that's more of a back and forth fight. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish Gabriel Santos. Gabriel Santos has an established kickboxing career throughout Brazil. He's 26 years old. He's fighting out of Illia Thai MMA, which is a solid gym that we've seen on here a couple of times. David Onama out of the controversial Glory MMA and Fitness. So this is a really good fight. It's a really hard one to pick. I think I actually am going to side with you, Keith, with David Onama. And just to be a little bit of a contrarian with everyone else, especially Tapology, putting the money on Gabriel Santos to win it by decision. I think the far safer bet is probably to bet on decision here because I think Gabriel Santos is defensively sound enough. I think he does have good head movement and he does have a decent enough chin to be able to withstand David Onama landing a lot of punches on him. Not to say that Onama can't finish it. I think he absolutely can. But I'm just going to bet on this one that Onama wants to go out there and right some of those mistakes that he made against, Nate Landwehr. And I'm going to say Onama, like Thomas Manzanero said here. He almost KO'd Nate Landwehr at least 2 times. He's definitely got KO power. I just think that Gabriel Santos isn't going to be as wild as Nate Landwehr to give those opportunities for Onama to land. So I think we're going to see a little bit more, a little bit less of that back and forth firefight. I think we're going to see David Onama ultimately come out here and be a better version of him and show that Nate Landwehr fight was actually part of his coming out party. And now that if he can reel in that excitement and that craziness, he can actually be a really, really good fighter. And there was a lot of people who were high on David Onama. I think it was after the Garrett Armfield submission. Again, the ability to knock out and finish a fight from both submission and from the feet is there for David Onama. So I'm going to go with David Onama, a little bit of a contrarian pick, not very confident in it, but I think this is definitely going to be a really good fight on the main card to watch.
Yeah. Scared money don't make no money. So I'm betting on David Onama. Next up, we got Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva, and I'm all in on Brendan, all in Allen. I think he's going to get it done this week by submission against Bruno Silva. We've seen Bruno Silva struggle against like these great jiu-jitsu guys, in particular Gerald Mearshart. And Brendan Allen is another great jiu-jitsu guy. Loves his rear naked choke. He's won like his last 3 or 4 fights, or 3 out of 4 by rear naked choke. And Bruno Silva, he seems to give up his back when he gets taken to the ground, and at which point he then gives up his neck as well. Very similar to Dustin Poirier, the way that he gives up his neck quite a bit on the ground. And it's hard to defend those rear naked chokes from these great guys. So I think Brendan Allen, he's not going to want to stand and bang with Bruno Silva because he's got really hard, heavy hands, and he's going to throw at Brendan Allen until the moment that Brendan Allen takes him down and submits him. I think it's going to be an early submission. Bruno Silva can't really contend on the ground with a guy like Brendan Allen. So I'm like I said, I'm all in on Brendan Allen. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was talking about we saw a lot of guys coming out of the same gym as what was it? Gabriel Santos, and back-to-back fighters from Illia Thai MMA. I'm saying that correctly, but back-to-back fighters here. Bruno Silva, he's a stand-up fighter, and we know that by him going to decision with Alex Pereira. He submitted Gerald Mearshart. Gerald Mearshart can go either way. GM3 is a guy who can sometimes. He will submit you a lot of the times, but he can get submitted. He looks for that submission over position a lot. So, or Gerald Mearshart submitted him. I don't even know why I'm going into that, but Gerald Mearshart submitted him here. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was almost with ease, and it was a quick fight. After going back and forth with Alex Pereira, a lot of people were high on Bruno Silva, got submitted by GM3. GM3 then took all that popularity, took that hype, and then I think he went out and lost. So, that's just getting transferred from person to person at this point. Coming back, he had that knockout win over Brad Tavares, which reaffirmed everybody's thought and mentality into Bruno Silva and his ability to go out there and strike it and be a competent striker and have a good fight. I think in this case, Brendan Allen's a guy who he can get hit on the feet. He's trying to improve that area of his game. It's always been far behind his grappling game, but I think this is a case where the grappling is just going to come out, and it's going to be the thing that leads Brendan Allen to victory. I don't think there's going to be too much striking that goes on here. Bruno Silva has shown his ability, to be taken down. He doesn't have that great a takedown defense, and Brendan Allen does have a good ability to take people down. And even one step further than that, not only does he take you down like Marab would just let you back up. Brendan Allen's going to hold you down. He's going to use some ground and pound, and he's going to win the fight there. And especially more than applying ground and pound, he's active on the bottom, but he knows how to also keep the position, keep you under him, and win those points on the judges' scorecards in the judges' eyes. He's going to be a little bit bigger here at 6'2". He's going to have a little bit of the reach advantage. Like I said, it's not going to matter as much because he's on the ground. And I think what Brendan Allen specializes in is the ability to manage distance and his timing to take a shot and ultimately get the fight to the ground. I don't think that's going to be something that Bruno Silva is going to be able to improve fast enough in order to keep this fight standing, which is where he needs it to be in order to win. We just look at the 5 on in from Brendan Allen. He's got a loss to Chris Curtis, in which Chris Curtis has some of the best takedown defense. I believe he actually was in a fight where we saw him get taken down a couple of times recently. I could be misremembering that. I think I am now, actually, that I'm thinking about it. But we came on here and talked a good bit about how good a takedown defense Chris Curtis has and his ability to keep fights standing. So, that's when, Brandon Allen had his smudge on his record, lost to Chris Curtis, but he came back, submitted Sam Alvey, which even at Sam Alvey's advanced age isn't the easiest thing to do. Submits Sam Alvey, has a back and forth fight that he wins with Jacob Malkoun, where he looked really good there. He submitted Christoph Jocko, which is another guy who's got really good kickboxing and stand-up ability. And then Andre Muniz is a guy who's strong on the ground. Brendan Allen went out and he submitted him. So even against guys that are competent on the ground, we're seeing Brendan Allen execute his game plan and be victorious. So for all of those reasons, I'm going with Brendan Allen. He's the bigger guy. He has shown his ability to outmaneuver strikers, get it to the ground. He's gotten every fight he's been into the ground pretty much, outside of the Chris Curtis exception. Training at Root for Sport, I see a lot of things indicating that Brendan Allen is going to be the winner in this fight. And Tapology agrees.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick a lot. And, you brought up Sam Alvey on Brendan Allen's resume. I just want to mention, I actually kind of miss Sam Alvey.
Smiling Sam was he was a legend for losing, but, still fun. Still fun to cheer for.
I think out of all the, we have these mythical fighters. I feel like Smiling Sam is definitely, he deserves to be up there with some of those mythical fighters. Like, bro, how do you have fucking 20 losses in a row in the UFC and you keep your job? I don't know anybody else that's that bad at their job and stays employed.
Yeah, I don't really have a smart comeback for that, other than Dana and UFC just enjoyed the hype behind, a lot of people aren't drinking Bud Light right now just because it's more fun to ride with the joke than it is to get a deal on Bud Light because they're hurting so bad or something.
Yeah.
So sometimes the joke is just funnier to ride with, and it was just maybe they enjoyed having Sam in there, and they enjoyed all of the fans getting a piss that Sam Alvey was still in there. It created kind of its own little mystique. It had its own little thing about it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they played into until the 7th loss. And all right, we can't do this anymore. We need to have some respect.
I missed it, dude. All right, next up, co-main event, Amanda Ribas versus Macyee Barber. I'm going with Macyee Barber, the future, just because she does something to these judges that they give her basically any fight that goes the distance. And, robbery after robbery for Macyee Barber. Split decision over Miranda Maverick. That one sticks out. I'm not going to insinuate that there's any sort of Me Too, Harvey Weinstein thing going on. Like, hey, you want this win? Come to the judge's hotel room or something before or after. Yeah, but Macyee Barber she has something on these judges that she keeps getting wins. So I think it's going to go the distance. I think Macyee Barber is going to do her thing. She's going to go out wrestle. She is coached by Uriah Faber, so she's got a very similar style to him. A very similar wrestling first style. And Amanda Ribas, she's very talented as well. I just think Macyee Barber with that 12-2 record. Those 2 losses were in cities where she wasn't in contact with the judges before the fight. So I'm going with Macyee Barber. What do you think, Tom?
I'm going with Amanda Ribas. And for all the reasons that you said, pretty much is why I'm going with Amanda Ribas. Macyee Barber's 12-2, but on those records, what should she really be? Maybe 11-4 or 10-4. There's a lot of fights that she got gifted that, she probably didn't win. And, I don't know if, listen, it's really hard to pick these women's fights. Like I know some handicappers have started like flipping coins just because, number one, a lot of these fights, they go to decision. And number two, the judging has been so sporadic that we can't even, it's so hard to track what metric these judges are actually scoring these fights off of that, how are we supposed to pick who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser when it's based off of some criteria that not all judges necessarily even follow. So, and even when we think that they are going to follow their criteria, they don't have to even back up their position or who they picked or why they picked it. They could just go radio silent, have an awful scorecard, and just, somehow end up judging next week or the week after's UFC fights. It doesn't make sense to me. I think the judges should absolutely have to defend their scorecards. And even if that defense was like yesterday where Keith Peterson stopped the fight. He was like, hey, listen, I messed up. At the end of the day, I'm not expecting it to be perfect, but I am expecting accountability. So if you mess up, just say you messed up. It's like, hey, that was my bad. And then let's figure out a way that's equitable for both the fighters, their camps, whatever, to move forward. To where, like, I forget who the fighters were yesterday, but the guy didn't tap. He made like a half motion, but didn't actually tap. And I think Keith Peterson pulled his hand back. And then, the slingshot effect had it tap. And then that's when Keith Peterson called the fight. Now, I don't know how you go about restarting that fight. Do you put them back in their corners? Do you put them back in the position? I'm not exactly sure, but we need to figure out a better circumstance than to just call it a no contest and then move on. So all of that, back to Macyee Barber and back to the judging, it's so hard to pick these fights. But I think if we're totally basing it off of just skill and who's better and who should win the fight, I think it goes to Amanda Ribas. Like we said, Macyee Barber, you look at her 5-on-end, she fought Andrea Lee, she fought Jessica Ai, she fought Montana De La Rosa, and she fought Miranda Maverick. Those are her last 4 wins. It's a split decision versus Miranda Maverick and Andrea Lee, which you can make a very good argument that she didn't actually win those fights. And she does have wins over Montana De La Rosa and Jessica Ai. Jessica Evil Eye is not necessarily the person that you want to be gloating about having a win over. Now, she is only 25 years old, so you can't expect her to increasingly get better. You said that she was trained by
Uriah Faber.
I don't know if she's doing that full time because I don't think that's not Uriah Faber's gym. Is it the Fort Collins Academy in Colorado? As far
as I know, she trains at Team Alpha Male primarily. Like she's over there with Borshev, Slava Claude. She's a full-time member over there. Right. If you look at her Instagram, it's all pictures with Uriah Faber. Tapology is wrong every now and then when it comes to those gyms, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go look at Amanda Ribas and look at her 5-on-end. And she submitted Paige Van Zandt, who's no longer in the UFC, and a lot of people were getting the better of Paige Van Zandt at that time. But Marina Rodriguez, she got knocked out by her. I don't think Macyee Barber is going to come in here and knock out anybody, especially not Amanda Ribas. She's got a decision over Vina Vandiroba, which say what you want about Verna Vandiroba, she shows up and she fights every single time. So that's a really good win and a really good feather in the cap to what Amanda Ribas' stand-up ability is. She's got this split decision loss to Caitlin Chookagian, in which case she was really back and forth. And Caitlin Chookagian has a really, she's a tall frame and some strong striking and strong grappling ability. She got the loss there, and then she's got a win over Viviane Araujo, which I think is another solid win. So I think Amanda Ribas, these two fighters have very similar skill sets, but I think Amanda Ribas is probably the better striker. Macyee Barber's going to have the grappling advantage, but I think Amanda Ribas is going to have a little bit of better takedown defense and overall a little bit better experience. She's a little bit closer to her prime. I'm going to go with Ribas to get it done, and that's purely based off of the fighter's skill. So if Ribas goes out there, it should have won, but we get another gifted decision to Macyee Barber. In that case, I think we're both right because I picked Ribas to win because she's going to win, and you picked Macyee Barber to win because the judges love her. So I think in that case, we both win.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. All right, main event. Very excited for this one. Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria, and I'm gonna go with Ilia Topuria here. I think he's gonna get it done. I think he's gonna get it done not easily against Josh Emmett because Josh Emmett is really talented, and a lot of people are gonna forget that he was pretty much next in line. Had he beat Yair Rodriguez, he would have been interim champ to go fight Volkanovski. But that shows just how high of a regard that the UFC is holding Ilia Topuria in right now. I do think Josh Emmett's going to make this a dogfight because that's what he does. He's very well-rounded, as is Ilia Topuria. Josh Emmett, great wrestler, really good hands. He's got great boxing. I just think Ilia Topuria, for everything that Josh Emmett does, Illia does it a little bit better. He's got more power behind his punches. He's way more aggressive. He's willing to stand and bang with guys in the pocket. And he can take these great ground guys and just dismantle them, as he did with Bryce Mitchell. He knew what Bryce Mitchell wanted to do with him, and he game planned him very well and just knocked his block off. He knocked his head off and made Bryce Mitchell look like a fish out of water. Ilia Topuria can get it done in a variety of ways. I think if he wants to go out and knock Josh Emmett out, he can. I think that's the most likely thing to happen too. I think he's just going to rush Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett, if he wants to shoot for a takedown, Ilia Topuria's got great jiu-jitsu, off his back, on top, everything. He can stuff the takedown. I just think Ilia Topuria is potentially, after Volk leaves either the division or the sport entirely, he's probably the next up in the lineage for the featherweight belt. The guy could go to lightweight and compete. I think the ceiling is so high for Ilia Topuria. He's another great Georgian in the UFC right now. I could keep rambling on and on about how much I like Ilia Topuria. He's one of my favorite guys to play as in the UFC video game. I think Ilia Topuria gets the win this week. Just aggressive, strong, great in all areas of MMA. Ilia Topuria going to get it done. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think you make a lot of great points. Josh Emmett at 38 years old, I don't think with each iteration we see of him moving forward, we're not going to see a better Josh Emmett. I think the chances are that we're going to see a worse Josh Emmett as we go on. 38 years old is old for almost any sport, but especially for the 145-pound division. The smaller the division, the shorter the prime. And I think if Josh Emmett continues to fight, we're going to have to see him move up to 155 pounds. But even then, at 38 years old, you're approaching the top part of your career. And now that the title shot is kind of far away, I mean, Josh Emmett would have to beat Ilia Topuria, and that would get him right back in, but probably have to qualify again one more time, get a win, especially if Yair Rodriguez loses. If Yair Rodriguez doesn't beat even if Yair Rodriguez does beat Volk and Josh beats Ilia Topuria, then maybe there's a case for him to have that rematch. But again, he got finished. So I think if Yair loses to Volk, then even a win over Illia doesn't rocket Josh Emmett into contention. And at 38 years old, you're not going to want 2-3 fights. So the path back to the belt has gotten so much longer for Josh Emmett. You wonder what that's going to do in terms of his motivation and his dedication and his overall mindset going into the fight. Is he fighting now just for money? Is he fighting out the contract? Does he still have aspirations to get back to the belt? How much does he actually believe he's going to get back to the belt? And you take all of that and you go against what is essentially a better version of himself, younger. 26-year-old Ilia Topuria has a strong grappling base. Like we said, we saw him land a strong, I think it was a right hand or a left hand. Obviously, it was a right hand or a left hand. If he hit him with his fist, it was either a right hand or a left hand, Tom. Yeah. Idiot. But we saw Ilia Topuria knock down Bryce Mitchell and then just totally maul him on the ground, which is supposed to be Bryce's area. And we've never seen Bryce Mitchell get mauled like that by anybody. Ilia Topuria, he's got the build, he's got the speed, he's got the power, he's got the fight IQ. He's really technical on the feet. And like you said, there's a high ceiling for this guy. He seems like he can do it all. And against a guy like Josh Emmett, who, we just saw him get finished by Yair Rodriguez. We saw Yair land a bunch of times on Josh Emmett. I think the younger, the more powerful, the more dynamic, and the faster guys are going to be able to have that advantage on Josh Emmett. So for all of those reasons, I think Ilia Topuria is going to go out there. He's going to get it done. I'm not sure what we're going to see next from Josh Emmett. I don't know how many fights he has left on his contract, but I imagine he's going to drop this one, and then I imagine he's probably not going to find his way to the belt. And like I said, even if he does get this victory in fantastic fashion, there's probably still one more fight ahead of him before he qualifies to fight for the belt. So he's got to go out and do something that nobody younger than him, older than him, what have you, has been able to do in order to get him within one fight of then fighting for the belt. It just seems like a really long road. It seems a lot to wrap your mind around if you're Josh Emmett. Also, it seems like 4 months coming off that triangle choke. I know if you don't go to sleep, it depends on the parameters and when you're allowed to start training again. But 4 months ago, after a back and forth fight with not even really that back and forth, but after getting your head kicked in by Yair Rodriguez for a certain amount of rounds, you're going to have to take some time off. So then you also have to wonder about how long Josh Emmett's been training and what that has to do with everything. It just seems like there's a lot of aspects that are going against Josh Emmett. And at 38 years old, after what we've seen him do over the last few fights, it's just there's a lot going against him here, and there's a lot going for Ilia Topuria. Aside from the fact that he's Georgian, and we just see these Georgian guys are on a absolute tear right now. And Thomas, you brought up a good point too. Topuria's kryptonite, if there happens to be one, would be fighters that maybe have a longer reach than him. And, this is an instance where actually Josh Emmett has the longer reach, which he's not used to having. 5'6". He's used to being a shorter guy. So very similar stature. These guys just there's almost nothing that can put this fight that for me can make it seem like Josh Emmett has an advantage here, other than the fact that he's just been in the cage with Yair Rodriguez, and Ilia Topuria hasn't. Ilya's done everything that you would expect him to do. I'm just rambling at this point. I think this one is going to be a good fight. It's an interesting matchup, but I fully expect Ilia Topuria to get it done. But it's going to be a firefight. These guys are going to stand. They're going to trade. They're going to throw. This featherweight division, especially when you get in the top 6-7 people. It's great. I mean, in featherweight too, you want to talk, or no, that's 35. I was going to just talk about Corey Sandhagen, but our guy Corey Sandhagen.
In him too. I mean, look at him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really important moment in UFC right now, because dropping down in the rankings big time to fight an unranked guy like Umar Nurmagomedov.
With a last name like Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, and you see the skill set that he presents, but all props to Corey for that. Just wanted to say that when you brought it up. But real quick about Josh Emmett too. Remember how rough the past couple of weight cuts have been for him? Like he
looks real emaciated.
Yeah, I mean, you would think maybe after losing to Yair Rodriguez, the guy would turn around and say like, okay, I'm getting a little bit older. Let me try and go to 155, because the UFC does seem to be a little bit more forgiving to guys that come off a loss and move up a weight class, especially when they're in that upper echelon. They do give them a good fight. Like you look at like Davison Figueiredo, he was talking about going up a division, and they were setting him up with I forget who he was supposed to fight, but it was a really good fight for Davison Figueiredo. So I'm surprised Josh Emmett didn't do that after those last couple of weight cuts. It's got to be tough on his body at this point at 38. And Ilia Topuria, he's young. He's got that dog in him. What is he, 26?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and like, he's just so marketable for the UFC too. He's got, he's good at like promoting himself outside of the fight, whether it be like for good or bad things. Remember that whole stupid hand sanitizer thing with Paddy Pimblett that got his name out there big time?
He would beat the fuck out of Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, no kidding. He would take fucking Paddy Pimblett out back the barn and do him like old Yeller. But
people on hand in the arena he might get an assault charge for how badly he would beat up Paddy Pimblett.
Oh yeah, and the fact that those two guys have a little bit of beef already too. I mean, Ilya would smoke him. I think Ilya, the ceiling is just so high. He's another guy. I was talking about it with Jack Jenkins. I mean, if those again, we have a little bit more people in the chat right now. Watching, if you know of one of these like investing apps for sports where you could lay, a little bit of money, basically like a big future on the guy's career, just in general, let me know, because I've been seeing ads for him. I don't know if any of them are legitimate, but Ilia Topuria seems like another good guy. Like Jack Jenkins would be like penny stocks that in a couple of years may turn into something very legitimate. But I think Ilia Topuria, the stock's going to rise even faster. He's going to start becoming a household name. Good looking guy, very marketable. And I think it's great for the division because he's fresh blood. So Ilia Topuria all the way this week. Looking forward to seeing what those odds are. Probably check him out now. What do you think? And did you check him? Yeah, super lock, definitely a super lock.
No, I didn't check the odds.
I'm looking them up right now.
Best fight odds.
Yep, that's exactly where I went to. That's how we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, baby. Fight night June 24th. Oh, they have this. They still have Punahele Soriano fighting Cedric Dumas.
Oh, okay. They're a little
Interesting.
bit
Maybe
behind.
not the best fight
Wow.
odds.
And they have Jack Jenkins at plus money right now. I love it. I'm going all in on Jack Jenkins this week. Ilia Topuria minus 335.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe Ilia Topuria by finish. I think that's a great pick. I think he's gonna finish Josh Emmett this week, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, what a fight! It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome to see Ilia Topuria back in there against such a high caliber opponent. Even though that fight against Yair Rodriguez wasn't super competitive for Josh Emmett, I'd like to believe he's going to make this a little bit more of a dogfight, especially because they're so similar in size. And Yair Rodriguez uses his legs much better. You know, he throws a lot of really mean roundhouse kicks, especially to the body. So, you know, and Ilia Topuria doesn't throw as many. This is going to be a lot of hands being thrown. I think it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a dogfight. This is a great fight for the ABC card, and it's got a lot of implications for the future of the division. So I'm pumped.
I'm looking at this too. David Onama went from plus 185 to plus 200. More and more money is coming in on Gabriel Santos. So, I mean, hey, if we're right, we're right. If we're wrong, we're idiots. So
fade the public. I mean, these are sharps right now. These are definitely sharps. You know, betting this early. But if you're watching, you can consider yourself a sharp too. You know, we're in on this early. I always do it after one of these Sunday episodes a week before. Throw a couple bets down if I think the lines are going to move. But that David Onama one, I think more money is going to go against David Onama. Jack Jenkins, I'd bet that right now.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, do we move on to our pick rundown?
Yes, sir. Just want to mention our new friend Thomas. I think Yair would be a hard matchup for Illia. I hope they'll fight each other one day. I also think Illia has a good chance against Volk. I do too. I think that would be a really competitive fight against Volk. And yeah, I think Yair would be a very hard matchup for Illia. Maybe the two will fight. We got to see how these next two major fights in the featherweight division play out. Anything could happen. You know, an Illia win and a Yair win, depending on how that looks. Yeah, you never know. You never know. But yeah, let's hit that pick rundown. Alrighty, so starting at the early prelims, I'm going with Zaglis, or as I like to call him, Zuglis Zumagulov over Joshua Van. Heavy on Jack Jenkins this week over Jamal Emmers. Love the plus money for Jack Jenkins. The ceiling is the roof, in the words of Michael Jordan. I'm going with Randy Brown over Wellington Turman, tailing you with that pick. I'm going with Neil Magny over Philip Rowe. I really like the Jillian Robertson, Tabitha Ricci Baby Shark fight to end by submission. And let me check this out real quick. Jillian Robertson, where's she at in the odds? Jillian Robertson. She's a dog. She's a slight dog. I like that dog money on Jillian Robertson, so I'm going to lean that way. And then on the main card, I'm going with Cody Brundage over Sedriques Dumas. I'm going with David Onama, controversial pick, over Gabriel Santos. I'm going with Brennan Allen over Bruno Silva, especially to get it done by submission. I really like a first-round rear naked choke. I'm going to go with Macyee Barber to get it done by decision over Amanda Ribas, and Ilia Topuria to finish Josh Emmett. What do you got?
Yeah, those are good ones. I am doing the Zuglis, Patty Pimlet hairstyle, Zumagulov over Joshua Van. I am going with, I'll trade you, Jack. But I will, okay.
Tail.
Yeah, I need to go get my brain checked out. I think I definitely have some issues here. I'm going to tell you with Jack Jenkins. I'm going to pick Randy Brown over Wellington Turman, and I think he's going to get the finish there. I'm picking Justin Tafa to knock out Austin Lane. I'm picking Neil Magny to get it done by decision, probably over Philip Rowe. Tabitha Ricci and Jillian Robertson. I actually like that one to go to decision. If I had to bet on one, I'd probably say Jillian Robertson, but Tabitha Ricci might have the same effect on the judges that Macyee Barber has. That being said, prelim lock still going with Tatsiro Tahira over Clayton Rodriguez. And that rounds my prelim notable selection. On the main card, I'm going with Cody Brundage. I'm going with David Onama. I'm going with Brendan Allen. I'm going with Amanda Ribas. And I'm going with Ilia Topuria to get it done by finish. Brendan Allen, I think, also has a strong possibility of getting that one done by submission or a grounded pound finish before sending it to the judges. So I would take him probably by finish as well.
Yeah, I like these picks a lot. I mean, there's definitely some money to be made on this one. Really looking forward to this card, especially Brendan Allen, Jack Jenkins, David Onama, and Ilia Topuria. I think there's going to be some bangers, and I definitely think there's going to be some money to be made. So, if you took a little bit of time out of your Sunday, out of your Father's Day, thanks for joining us. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thomas, you were with us basically a full episode today. I hope you subscribe. Thomas Manzanero calling you out. Full name. Subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. And thank you for joining us in the chat. You can check us out on Spotify as well. If you can't watch us, full episode on YouTube, can't join us live, you can listen on Spotify. Full audio, video. And definitely jump in the comments. Let us know what you think. Check us out on Men of Order. Going to throw up a little preview over there too. They got some great stuff, great content. It's Strong Dad June over on Men of Order. So just want to reiterate, happy Father's Day. Got a lot of fathers, that we're friends with in this MMA space. So happy Father's Day to all of them. Tom and I are not dads yet. So the only way I can celebrate today is maybe with a couple of happy dads. What are you going to do for Father's Day, Tom?
I have a dog, so I don't think that's what this holiday is made for, but I can try and adopt it. Just flying up to New Jersey, going to see my dad, and then finishing up on moving down here to the Myrtle Beach area. I still got a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to pack, a lot of stuff to bring. So I'll be working, at that the next little bit here, but yeah, nothing. I guess flying and traveling 600 miles is semi crazy. So that's what I'll be doing. Going to see my dad in Jersey.
Nice, man. Yeah, I look forward to coming to visit you in South Carolina soon at the new place. We'll be doing an episode. I'll be on camera again. We'll be doing it together. So, that's so funny. Thomas Manzanero. 10% of people say my name good, and you did it, bro. That's funny because I can only say about half the UFC roster correctly. And I'm always getting comments like, please at least say the guy's name right if you're going to shit on his UFC career. So glad I could say your name. But thanks for being with us, everybody that watched. Thanks for jumping in the chat. Thank you, Tom, for taking a little bit of time out of your day. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you enjoy the fights.